Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Caroline Colas, and I'm the Senior Director of Health and Wellness at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan, and your host today on the Positive Psychology Hour, a series that we do in partnership with Whole Being Institute. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce what we're going to be discussing, why we do what we do, understanding self-motivation with Ozge Kantas. Drawing from the motivation science of self-determination theory, this session will address the basic psychological needs that drive our motivational process. Self-determination theory explains how we have evolved to master ambient challenges and integrate growth and new experiences into a coherent sense of self. STD, or self-determination theory as it's called, also demonstrates how these natural developmental tendencies require ongoing social support. What we have here on the Positive Psychology Hour. By understanding why you do what you do, you will be able to identify what supports or frustrates these psychological needs and how that can impact your motivation and well-being. We will discuss ways to be more mindful of facts in everyday life that can support the psychological needs of ourselves and others, and how that, in turn, can enhance our well-being. We hope you will gain a relatable understanding of motivation, development, and wellness as a way of positive intervention. Ozge Kantas is a social and personality psychologist and psychodramatist. After working with Edward Dietschy and Richard Ryan, co-founders of self-determination theory at the University of Rochester, she is now an assistant professor of psychology at St. John Fisher College in Rochester, where she teaches classes in the intersection of trauma, psychopathology, and social psychology from a human motivation perspective. She's also the founder of Psychosocial Consultancy, working with teams, implementing interventions, teaching, and communicating about psychological science, and consulting with organizations and individuals. Ozge is passionate about advancing mental health in the workplace, helping to create a better understanding of user experience and motivation, and human-centered product service development. She volunteers with World Hunger Relief, the American Group Psychotherapy Association, and American Society for Group Psychotherapy and Psychodrama on improving community, mental health, and well-being, developing trauma-informed leadership, promoting group psychotherapy for public visibility, and evidence-based research on psychodrama. Ozge, welcome to the call. My goodness. It is so good to see you. And we should add a lover of plants. I can see your plants in the background. They're amazing. Yes.
It gives me the chance to connect with the nature and my own needs. My plants are a great reminder for me that I have needs as plants. I need to water.
That's a great reminder. You need to water yourself. You need some time in the sunlight.
Yeah.
So a little micro intervention there. How did you happen upon the Whole Being Institute?
So it is when I attended a workshop of Dr. Dan Tomasulo, who is a psychodramatist and a positive psychologist who also teaches at Whole Being Institute. So it was a psychodrama workshop, and I met with Phoebe Atkinson, who is the curator of these series. So my dear Phoebe supported and encouraged me to be a presenter in this series, positive psychology series. And first I was an audience. I watched other scholars, amazing names such as Barbara Atkinson, Fredrickson, such as Dan Tomasulo, and then now I'm honored and thrilled to be one of the presenters in this positive psychology hours.
Yes, well, we are thrilled to have you. And self-determination theory, it seems like it's really relevant and really important right now to get us to the next hump, right? As we're going into colder weather, depending on where you're living, as we're getting into like the fall. It feels as the pandemic's going on a little bit longer than any of us anticipated. We're going into the holidays. This seems like the perfect time for this conversation. So I'm going to let you go ahead and get started, and you can go ahead and share your screen if you like, and I'll be here monitoring the chat and helping in any way I can.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your presence and help in the chat. So, why do we do what we do? This was a question that I was keeping asking to myself, and until I met with the self-determination theory throughout my graduate studies, throughout my master's and doctoral studies, and I was hit by the research done about that. Because I was finding sometimes myself asking, oh, I have this, I have that, I am doing good at this, I am more or less lucky than many other people. So why shouldn't I be just grateful or just be happy about what I have? What is lacking in me? So after I met with this theory and I came to US from Turkey to study on this theory, blending with my psychodrama and group therapy background, it became more than a theory to me. So until that point, I can tell I was doing research, but with self-determination theory, it turned to be a me search for me. So I kind of understood the motivational background of my hassles and uplifts. So this is I think it will be, and I hope it will be a perfect tool for assess yourself, dear audiences, and assess what is going on in the other people that you have daily interactions, so that you can help them to create conditions for self-motivation. So at the heart of human freedom, says Ed Deci, one of the co-founders of self-determination theory, there's the experience of choice. Without being choiceful, we are not that much free to do what we are willing to do. And it is not about independence, but about choicefulness. So when we are free to choose what we want to choose, we have that available environment for us to grow, because we as people tend to be driven by a need to grow and gain fulfillment out of that. So Edward Deci and Rich Ryan has been working together since 1985, more than 40 years of something of research, with an evidence-based research, with amazingly innovative experiments. They are showing us that how it is important to be free, to be volitional in whatever we want to do. However, it is not easy to be volitional for everything. For example, in pandemic, wearing mask. It is not easy, it is not comfortable, it is not maybe the most preferable or favorite thing that we do, but we need to do that, right? So we need to have a rational and a self-motivation to do so, to keep up with certain things, or maybe like even flossing your teeth, like teeth, or brushing your teeth. It might not be the most fun thing, especially in the evenings and at the nights when you want to go to bed ASAP. So, but if we believe in the value and the importance of things, we still can do certain things with an intrinsic, with an autonomous volition to do so. So this is about the motivation quality, not the quantity of what we are doing. And to be that much self-motivated, we have basic psychological needs. Yes, we are motivated to grow and change. However, to be able to do so, our three innate universal psychological needs need to be met. So we can be self-determined when our needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness are fulfilled. So turning back to the metaphor of plant, Caroline, I can say that the psychological needs are like the sun, soil, and water to a plant. We can live without them to a degree, but we can only survive without them. We cannot thrive without them. And if any of my plants in my office is not thriving, maybe the leaves are going yellowish, or maybe the roots are having some problems, I would not blame my plant. I would consider what happened to my plant instead of saying what is wrong with my plant. So I might try to change the how much sunlight it gets. I might change my frequency of watering it. I might want to change the soil it has, because I know that my plant has a full potential as long as I support its needs of sun, soil, and water. Same as well. We are an organismic, active organisms as people, and we tend to grow. Our innate tendency is to grow and to blossom and to give fruit or to have flowers, colorful flowers. What kind of a plant are you is like totally up to you. But the innate tendency is to grow, to flourish, to thrive. Therefore, if we cannot do this, we need to turn back and look what is lacking. What is my need? Where are my needs are frustrated in terms of maybe I am lacking autonomy. Maybe I don't feel autonomous. Maybe I don't feel like my perspective is considered and given importance. Maybe I am lacking in terms of competence. Maybe I don't feel myself skillful and masterful in terms of what I am planning to do. Or maybe I am lacking relatedness. Maybe I don't feel myself safe. Maybe psychological safety is missing. Maybe I don't feel like I am cared, concerned, and loved. So when we can trace back to where are my psychological needs are frustrated, we can more likely to find out what has happened to us that prevents us to blossom. So in positive psychology, what we understand from living is not just surviving. The aim is to be in our fullest potential, to thrive. As well said by Martin Seligman, who is the founder of positive psychology, the aim of psychology should not make miserable people less miserable. Our aim should be to help them to live their fullest potential, to make them happy, grateful, meaningful, and connected and skillful in whatever they want to do or they pursue as a goal. Therefore, what you have in life is not a pure determinant of how and why you have this in your life. And it is not a guarantee, like how many luxurious belongings maybe you have. It is not a guarantee how you are going to feel good about yourself. So especially in COVID, for example, even if you have everything or maybe you lose everything, we meet at this common point that our psychological needs are in a sense thwarted. We are not that much autonomous in terms of what we want to do. Especially in the beginning of this pandemic, we were not able to travel. We were not able to get out of our houses. We were not able to work as we are used to work. We were not able to connect with meaningful relationships we have in our life. So this pandemic was kind of a signal, like a call to turn back to our basic psychological needs. For a long time, maybe we underestimated those. Maybe we swiped our needs under the carpet and we were continuously on the go, 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 do type of on the run. However, we need to relearn how to satisfy our psychological needs in another way, in a way or another way, as the circumstances are novel for us. Maybe the virtual meetings, homeschooling, job seeking, bread making, adopting new hobbies, struggling with social distancing, you name it. So everything is in a way novel, and we need to be spontaneously and creatively find new ways of approaching those. There are two key assumptions in self-determination theory. One is we want to grow, and this drives our behavior. And the second is Not all goals are created equal. For example, I might want to grow in my job. I might want to uh, earn more and more money. However, in terms of the motivation quality, why do I want this? It is not about motivation quantity. So let's assume like starting a diet on every Monday and failing every Tuesday. So it sounds like I want to be on a diet. I want to start exercising. I want to do X, Y, Z. But for some reason, you might observe yourself not being able to do so. So it is not about how much you want it. It is about why you want it. So by focusing on the motivation quality, we are more able to find meaningful answers for ourselves to use as a compass to align and adjust our motivation accordingly. Because our direction toward growth should not be passively pushed, should not be coerced or forcefully commanded or inducted to us. We need to have an intrinsic motivation, an autonomous motivation, and we need to have our needs supported by doing so. Because we are active organisms within social environments. We are not living in isolation. We are living in social environments, and any behavior is a function of person and the environment. So we need environmental support. We need the surroundings to be available for us to thrive. Remember the metaphor of a plant. We are not great machines. We are not that's simply great machines that when you put an input, you will receive an output. So we are not that simplistic. We are organisms, not mechanisms. And gaining mastery over challenges and taking new experiences are essential in order to develop a cohesive sense of self within mutually supportive relationships. And what do I mean by intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation? What do I mean by being intrinsically motivated, such as gaining knowledge or growing, versus being extrinsically motivated to gain money, to gain some prizes, or to assure some praise, or ensure a certain image? What do I believe in? What do I mean by saying extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation? The concept of intrinsic motivation, or engaging in activities for the inherent reward itself, inherent rewarding aspect of the behavior itself, plays an important role in self-determination theory. So like as a play of a kindergarten kids, they are already prone to it. They would love to play unless they are blocked, unless they are prevented, unless they are thwarted in terms of their basic psychological needs. In therapy, for example, if a kid is still able to play, we know that there's still something we can move forward with that kid. This is why play therapy exists, for example, to act out, to play forward what is missing, what is needed, what is going on with that kid. So as play is a pure form of autonomous motivation, intrinsic motivation, sometimes some of the tasks, some of the things we do are done with that playfulness. So we just recently lost Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, who is the founder of flow theory. This is the flow state. This is the playfulness, the state where we are doing things because we truly enjoy doing things. This is the pure intrinsic motivation. On the other hand, if we are doing certain things because of extrinsic motivation, we lose our intrinsic motivation and we are just doing certain things just maybe to receive some rewards or to escape from some punishments, as in a carrot stick type of motivation. This is why it is not the motivation quantity itself. It is not about how much motivation you have, but what type of a motivation you have. So let's give some examples. And if you come up with some personal examples, don't hesitate to post in the chat. uh, for certain activities. For example, in positive psychology, we know that gratefulness is good for us, right? So we should like count our blessings. However, if it comes to a point where we are forced and swiped off the uncomfortable emotions out of that, such as I should be grateful, I shouldn't be sad, I shouldn't be unhappy, I should just look other people who are worse than me and I should be grateful for this. So this is this is an extrinsically punishing way of approaching myself. On the other hand, if I know that I can find some intrinsic way of counting my blessings, if I can, without comparing myself to others, without doing social comparison with others, if I can say, oh, one thing at a time, I at least did this, I at least connected with that person, or I at least, this is my personal choice. So we can be even grateful for those things that happening and not happening. So this is an example of how we can use even the basic assumptions of positive psychology and differentiating the motivational background of doing so. For example, if you are doing yoga just to have a certain image, or like sitting for a meditation just because it is what other people are doing, this is a control, this is an extrinsic type of motivation. Or for example, if you and your company are selling some products to customers with a certain marketing strategy that makes feel bad if they don't buy or cannot buy this certain product, you are playing that frustration card, this extrinsic motivation card, which will end up unhappy buyers who can switch to your competitors anytime when their rewards or when their punishments outright override yours. Or, for example, if a company thinks merely paying more to employees will result in higher employee engagement, probably that company have no idea why they have that much high turnover rate. Especially the micromanagement aspect of workplace in the pandemic, it showed how it is ridiculously undermining people's well-being and mental health. Because to make people work effectively virtually, if a manager cannot micromanage that much as that manager used to do in the workplace, that leader understood the importance of intrinsically motivate the employees, their subordinates. Or let's give another example. If you are wondering why some of those kids from undereducated families or low SES families indeed have some bright academic life in the future, you might try questioning, maybe buying those fancy expensive toys, or maybe like flooding all the resources in front of those privileged kids do not help to self-actualize their potential, because they're extrinsic like carrots. If you, let's say, take A plus, I will buy you this. So this is an extrinsic motivation, and it does not support the autonomy need of the students, for example. If you are questioning how some people can have resilience and hope under adverse conditions, maybe you can consider observing what are the protecting factors for those people towards their growth, even under those circumstances. Because resilience and hope comes from having your psychological needs met, at least by some sort of support. It can be a role model, it can be a supervisor, it can be a parent, it can be a teacher, it can be a therapist, or it can be your partner to implement and help yourself to create conditions for yourself so that you are autonomous, related, and competent, so that you can pursue your goal. And one of the very striking examples come from people in their terminal stage of their life, for example. So if you cannot believe your eyes, how some people do not have fear of that while they're facing their end of life, we might benefit from learning about their meaningful life experiences, not how many thousands of dollars they have in the bank, not how fancy titles they have in their life, or how a wonderful, bright house they have, but the meaningful experiences they have in their life. So this is why intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation is a determinant of our life quality, our well-being. And even for positive psychology concepts, the more we push ourselves to do something, or the more we do it just because others are doing it, it is backfiring. In a nutshell, psychological needs are important because there's no hierarchy in them. They are there, no matter which stage of your life you are at, no matter whatever you have or you don't have. The psychological needs are there and they need to be supported. And there is a difference between wants or desires versus needs. These needs are universal. These needs are universal regardless of your age, gender, political orientation, religion, socioeconomic status, culture. So these are important. Some circumstances, some environments, or some work conditions, some cultural atmospheres or family environment might pose greater importance on either one of those needs on top of the other. However, in each level of our physiological, societal, or economical situations, the need for competence, the need for relatedness, and the need for autonomy is still there. And we can find out which segment we have a deprivation. And that we can decide how we can satisfy or at least advocate for our needs when they are thwarted. To define those needs, maybe we to be on the same page, let's look specifically what they mean. Autonomy is not like pure freedom, doing whatever you want to do. It is about the experience of self-endorsement and ownership, the responsibility of our own actions. What is responsibility? It is when you divide into two, it is the response ability. Are you able to give adequate responses? Are you able to give creative and novel responses? Are you owning your own actions? Are you doing something because you want to do it or because you are pushed to do so? So even for big life decisions, even if they turn out to be negative, something negative, if it is your own decision, if it is your own autonomous endorsement, you regret less. You can say, well, I tried. But if it is pushed by someone else, you deny that responsibility and you turn up blaming others. Like, you told me to do that. You see, it is not going to happen. I knew that. So it creates more and more frustration. Competence is a need. It refers to the feeling of being effective in my actions and within my social environment. So that is experiencing the opportunities and support for exercising what I want to do and expanding my potential, expanding my capacities and talents. So I might not be skillful at something. Maybe I don't know where to start running, for example, or I don't know where to start declutter my home. And if I receive support for my competencies in terms of like how to do it yourself type of things from others, or simply maybe watching a YouTube video, I might develop my competence out of that. So being told what to do is not always bad. An athlete might need his or her coach to train that athlete, right? So this coach is there to support the competencies, or a leader or a supervisor is there to provide structure and instructions to promote the skillfulness. However, it should be done with an autonomy supportive way. This is why these needs are not interchangeable. And the last need is relatedness, which is the experiencing others as responsive and sensitive to my perspective, and being able to be, and at the same time, it's the mutual experience, feeling connected, being involved with others, and having a sense of belongingness. So these are the arc of psychological needs: autonomy, relatedness, and competence. Rather than thinking of motivation as being driven either purely extrinsic versus purely intrinsic, it is often helpful for us to view it as a continuum. Yes, purely self-determined behaviors tend to be intrinsically driven, and they are done for enjoyment out of pure interest and inherent satisfaction for the action itself. And yes, on the other end of the continuum, non-self-determined behaviors, which are performed only because they must be done, these are the extreme cases, and there is a lack of complete control. And when we are moving in the continuum as such, where the source is from impersonal to purely personal, purely internal, we can see that the best, of course, is I'm doing this because I really want to do it, but not everything is as such. I personally don't enjoy wearing mask, but I do it because it is important for me and for others to protect myself and to protect my community. I am doing this because it is personally important for me. I am doing this because I personally value the goal of it, for a community health, for example. Or let's think about some other examples of like introjections. I am doing this because I feel guilty, or I think that I should do this. Some of the chores, for example, I would feel bad if I don't do that. So it is somewhat external. And it is the point where our motivation messes up, actually, because it's a blurred line between the green boxes and the blue boxes here. So are you really doing it because you want to do it, or because you should do it? For example, we know that having sex with your partner is good for your happiness, but are you having sex with your partner because otherwise you would feel bad to say no? Because you think you should have sex that specific occasion for that specific occasion? Are you free to say, hey, honey, I don't feel okay now? Or are you, like, another example, we gave the example of grades, for example. I am working towards my exams because I am just focused on the grade that I am going to get. And what could be good instead, if I enjoy learning things, if I enjoy and think about the ways, how am I going to use this information in the future? It could be an internal source for me, rather than just focusing on the performance itself. And the most miserable way, the most unfortunate motivation piece is the A motivation, the impersonal motivation. There's no point me doing this. I don't know why I am doing this. There's clearly no either extrinsic or intrinsic reason for me to do this. So someone put me in this bowl, and as a plant, I am just sitting in this plant. And I'm at the vegetative state now. The turning back to the plant metaphor, it is the vegetative state that you might have psychologically, not medically. So some people criticize self-determination theory because it's emphasized on choice, because it's emphasized on the free will, the volition piece of it. So people say the more choices people will have, they will be overwhelmed with the how many choices they have. Yes, that's true for some of the cases. In theory, choice is great, but in actuality, too much choice might thwart development, because then you might be lost in all the alternatives available to you. You might not know what is best for you, what do you need. Maybe you are lacking the structure, maybe you are lacking the background information, know-how of the things, and maybe you don't actually want to see that much options available to you. You might find yourself saying, just can someone tell me what to do? And this someone needs to be, again, someone who can support your autonomy, relatedness, and competence. It is not do whatever you do. This is neglect. This is leaving you alone. So sometimes child comes to a parent and asks, I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. Or maybe an employee, or maybe a student. So people seek help from one-up positions, or maybe some same level positions. Maybe I'm lost about my relationship and I might ask advice from a trusted friend. But in fact, what I need to is a mirror to reflect my autonomy, a mirror to support my competencies and to feel connected, to feel that belonging, that I matter to others. I am cared and connected by others. And I am, with the support that I might receive, I am wholeheartedly behind my choice. It is my self-endorsed thing. And I am masterful in the things that are important to me. Therefore, the criticism about choicefulness is a problem of, it is not an issue of autonomy. This is a lack of competence support. I might ask my coach, I might ask my department chair, I might ask a peer to show me at least a way, to role train me in a way that I can develop my skills accordingly. So it is not about throwing, like offloading all the choices to someone. And the criticism is not about, it is not an issue of autonomy. It is an issue of lack of competence support. Because people need structure, because people need feedback. And choicefulness is not about being free of boundaries. It is not about not caring about others. It is about healthy boundaries. It is about having healthy borders. And also it is about owning our own actions with responsibility. Therefore, informed choice is the best form of autonomy. So there is a tool that you might want to utilize for yourself. This is actually a scale, basic needs satisfaction in relationship scale. This is what we use in our research to assess to what extent people are supported or thwarted for their basic psychological needs. And this is an example from workplace, for instance. In my working relationship with my direct supervisor, do I have a say in what happens? Can I voice my opinion? This is autonomy support, for example. And cut the supervisor piece, put partner, for example, or put teacher, put friends, whatever, put my mom, my dad. So am I free to give a say in what happens? Can I voice my concerns in this relationship with my parents, with my partner, with my friends, in my friendship, in this club, in this democratic poll, whatever it is? So in this relationship, you name it, what kind of a relationship is this? Do I have a say? Or in this relationship, for example, again, going back to this work example with my direct supervisor, do I feel like a competent person? Do I believe in my skills? At least if not my skills, do I believe in my potential to develop those skills? This is also a competence support. Or do I feel like as if I'm a failure, as if I am not able to learn or do something, as if whatever I am doing is wrong? So this is a competency, it is a competence of frustrative feedback, for example, always saying, nah, no, it is wrong, you couldn't master it. So sometimes the supervisors, coaches, teachers, or parents or partners use this to motivate, like, it is not good enough. So that as if it will like motivate the other person to do more, to do better. However, it is a competency frustration. We need accurate and autonomy supportive, competence supportive feedback. And this can only be done with relatedness support. With a large personal distance, for example, if I feel a large personal distance with my direct supervisor, this is a relatedness frustration for me. On the other hand, if I feel that there's a psychological safety, I can easily admit what I have done wrong so that I can ask for feedback, so that I can pick their others' opinions. So look at those buckets and assume that they are your need buckets. How do you fill your buckets? How do you fill your buckets of autonomy, competence, and relatedness? And what drains your resources? What are the holes in your buckets for your relationship, specific relationship? Or maybe without knowing, you were draining some other people's resources or some other people's autonomy, competence, or relatedness. Just with good intention, maybe, just for the sake of their best. But the way you do it, it is not about what you do it, why you do it, either to yourself or to others. All three basic needs simultaneously add and additively foster positive outcomes. So they are not interchangeable, they are not bargainable. However, in most of our relationship with others, we do some bad bargainings. Like what? For example, just to ensure that relationship, just to sustain that relationship, sometimes people give away their autonomy. Or sometimes just to be autonomous, just to claim that this is my free will, I will do whatever I want to do, people sacrifice their relationships. Or sometimes people can just have some competency. They do a job just because they're very good at that job, without having meaningful and mutual relationships in that job, and without feeling autonomously free and have a voice in that. So just because you are able to do something should not guarantee that you will be happy for doing this. So if you sacrifice a need for the sake of another need, that means you are again frustrating yourself, and it will end up lowered and declined well-being. They are not interchangeable. They are not bargainable. So turning back to our kindergarten skills, this is from a kindergarten wall. The best way to fill your bucket is to fill others' buckets. So this is a good example from a kindergarten wall, like bucket fillers versus bucket dippers, or bucket filling versus bucket dipping. So it is how teachers, kindergarten teachers, set classroom rules, for example, or code of conducts, such as cheering up for a sad friend, helping people who need it, listening to others, caring for animals, versus not being a bully, not exclude anyone, not ignoring someone, or not yelling at others. So these are simple kindergarten rules. However, if you use this metaphor of bucket filling or bucket dipping, you can self-assess what is missing in your life, or what is filling your bucket, which type of relationships are filling your bucket. And within the same relationship, that person might have some behaviors that fills your bucket and some behaviors that dips your bucket. For example, in my relationship with my mother and father, after learning these, I advocated myself by saying, hey mom, or hey dad, this really helps me. This really supports my needs when you do this. And in some other times, I can say, well, it doesn't feel like I am hurt by you. I am not happy with this feedback because it makes me feel incompetent. So by learning myself, as I've said, rather than a research, it was a me search for me. By learning myself, I was able to advocate for myself. And sometimes without even ending these relationships. Sometimes I was more like courage, like I found courage to end some of my relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, or work relationships. And for some of my relationships, I found that courage to change the quality of my relationships personally. This is a personal example for myself. So you can apply these information, that knowledge, self-knowledge, for one-up positions, for people with one-down positions, or with equal positions. And this will help you to ask what's happened to you, to others, or what happened to me, instead of stigmatizing or labelizing yourself or others as what is wrong with you or what is wrong with me. So we have a couple of minutes. Maybe you can try exercising, and maybe if you have some cups around you or an empty chair, you can place your need buckets. I'm not sure whether everyone knows what an empty chair exercise is, but it is simply, let me show briefly. It is simply, maybe I can, oh, this looks like my autonomy bucket. Or this looks like my relatedness bucket. I can place my bucket into an empty chair and sit in front of it and start talking with that, start interviewing that in a make-believe way of like childish, playful sense. This is what we do in psychodrama. This is what kids do. This is why their pure expressiveness is still intact, but as we grow old, we lose our spontaneity and playfulness, unfortunately. So in their make-play games, they are so skillful in showing what they need actually, or interviewing their dolls, for example, or cars or Legos, whatever. So I will keep silent for a couple of minutes. And if you can pick an object or three objects, your three buckets, and ask, what happened to you? What fills you? Or what drains you? That might be a good start at least. Let it sit with you for a while. You can continue with more. I'm sure it can take more than 2-3 minutes. And it can be like an everyday mindfulness exercise if you want to do so. It can be a needs assessment tool for yourself when things are going upside down. Because what is wrong with you, if no matter whether you ask this to others or to yourself, what is wrong with you is pathologizing. It is blaming. On the other hand, asking what happened to you is supportive. It is compassionate to others, and it is self-compassionate to yourself as well. Let's find out what happened to you. Turning back to the metaphor of the plant, these basic needs are like sun, soil, and water to us. And how much sun you need, what type of soil you need, what kind of a watering you need is totally up to you. And it can change from relation to relation. It can change to circumstance. And it is how you can help yourself, others, in the way of giving and taking and assessing what they need further. So thank you very much, and congratulate yourself for being a bucket filler today, spending 1 hour of positivity here with me. And I keep seeing some chat messages about how they feel after this exercise.
So Diana says, when I do this exercise, I found myself doing it with my childhood self. I mean, I imagine talking about needs with the child version of me, and it helps understand myself.
Yeah. Thank you, Diana. I think it's a great example because we are born with those needs. What is happening is throughout when we grow up, if we are frustrated for our needs, then our well-being declines and ill-being and mental health circumstances happen. So turning back to your childhood was, I think, a great connection to your pure form of your playfulness and your intact needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This was really, really interesting and helpful, I think. And I was surprised, actually, to see the simplicity yet the profound nature of this. When you started using this, it sounds like your relationships really shifted.
Personally, yes.
And did you find that you, as you said, oh, wait a second, I'm not supporting somebody in the way that I want to? You know, we talk about, in positive psychology, we talk about what we can control is how we show up, yes. Right? In between stimulus and response, there is a pause. And in that pause, we have choice, right? And we can choose how we show up. So it sounds to me like I can examine this in how people are relating to me, but I can also use this tool to examine how I'm relating to others as well. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And improve in a multifactorial way. I also thought it was really interesting how you said that choice and overwhelm. And if you could talk a little bit more about that, like, you know, because we are in the situation now where some people might be a little overwhelmed. So how can this self-determination theory help us kind of say, okay, wait a minute, what's really important to me? Do I look at one of my choices and say, do they meet my basic needs?
So it's a great question. Thank you, Caroline. And in terms of the overwhelming impact of having too many choices, I can give an example of, for example, supervisory experiences. So a student might come up with plenty of options in the future after graduation. For example, I'm working as an assistant professor here, and students have like concerns for their futures. What am I going to do when I graduate? Am I going to do grad school? Am I going to start a job? Am I going to do this and that, this and that, this and that? So if I say, do this or do that, I would undermine their autonomy. Who am I to say to tell them what to do? But I can help them to question themselves, like in a way of Socratic questioning, for example, to narrow down their choices, or offers them some options so that they can safely and freely test. Maybe providing them resources about, like, reading a real life examples, connecting them with some role models, or sending them some YouTube videos in terms of what they are stuck. So instead of telling them what they should do, what I am doing is, like, subtitles. I care about your concern. I see that you are lost in, like, multiple options. I am here to support you. I am here with you. And here are my alternatives if they might help you. And let's talk about, what are your goals? What are your strengths? What are your past experiences? Because what I would suggest would be best for me.
Right.
It might not be the best for that student.
It also seems like the question why comes into play. For example, I'll use in teaching NIA and sharing the work of NIA, I often work with teachers and they'll say, I want to teach a new class and I haven't taught before and I'm really excited. I said, well, why do you want to teach? And then, well, I want to do a good job. Well, why do you want to do a good job? Well, I care. Well, why do you care? Because it's been so meaningful to me. I was like, oh, okay, so you want to share this because you want to share your excitement, right? Well, so it's not about doing this perfectly or doing this the best job, that you can for someone else. It's because you really want to stand up and share the work from your heart, right? And why else, and then by asking that question, why, over and over again, I have found I can get a little bit deeper into am I on the right track? Yeah.
Exactly. And this motivation continuum that I showed, it is also a helpful framework to understand whether I am truly enjoying it, whether I am doing this because I give importance, whether it is aligned with my personal values, or whether I think I should or ought to. Otherwise I would feel guilty or ashamed.
Right.
Sometimes the social pressure is not real, but sometimes it's imagined or implied. Or I am doing this because there is a punishment that I want to escape, or I want to get a reward. Or am I totally clueless about what I am doing? Whether there's no either extrinsic or intrinsic motivation for me.
Right. Am I on automatic? Oh, this is so helpful. And everyone, it blends so beautifully in what we're going to be discussing on Thursday on the online Positive Psychology Hour, 3 positive psychology tools to sustain the inner being of the social activist, with Unita Brewer, who is on the call today and listening. And she is excited to be with us on Thursday. And I hope you all can join us for that. Thank you so much. So much. It just was so helpful. I have so many notes. Anybody else?
And I forgot to tell, actually, this painting is from the original self-determination theory lab. Now it is closed. The professors at DC and Richrine are retired. And this 40-something-year-old painting is with me, continuing the legacy with myself. And I am happy to share this as a backup support for me with you.
Oh, that's wonderful. I often say that, when recovering from loss, aesthetics, something beautiful, exercise, and education learning really help to propel us into that state of wellness and whole being. So you exemplify that in such a beautiful way. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm going to take off the spotlights. I'm going to let you guys, if you would like to unmute and thank our speaker, please do so. We will see you on Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody.